Rebecca. Thank you so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we get to interview you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks for having me. I am a business consultant and I work with organizations to help streamline their leadership development from emerging leaders all the way to the C suite. And I have had a career as a consultant. I've owned my own consulting firm for a little over 5.5 years, but have been self employed my entire life running independent 1099 teams. So um, I love what I do, and I love digging into leaders to help bring the best out of themselves so that they can bring out the best in others.
Love that. I would love if you could tell us what your books are about.
Yes. So right before COVID, February 29th of 2020, I had released my first book called Beyond the Board: How to Achieve Your Vision Board Goals in a Fulfilling and Sustainable Way. And that book was really, I was new into my business, and I was honestly trying to get all of my thoughts together on how to achieve success, but not in success in the way other people think. It's like fulfilling success, sustainable success. And so that was a book written on how to achieve goals, and not just to set them and look at them on a vision board, but actually, what do you do to get them? And in that beginning of that book, I dedicated it to my kids. I have to think now with the birth dates that are happening this summer. This makes me sound bad, but I have a 10 and a 12-year-old. That's what I have. And so they were young, and I wanted them to know what their mom stood for and was about. And so they love seeing their names in print. The second book, Leaderboard to Leadership: How to Earn and Excel in Your First Sales Leadership Promotion. So, this is specifically about a niche that I had found that was not being served, was this emerging sales leader specifically, but you could read this book as an emerging leader. So you're an individual contributor, and then you go, should I go for leadership? What should I keep? What should I throw away? What's going to get in my, like, all of the stuff, right? All these assumptions that people make. And I just had a lot of clients who were really good at their jobs and then set up to fail because they weren't, just the common things weren't talked about. And so it's really a blueprint for individual leaders and also organizations to go, how are we streamlining this development at every stage as we rise up the ranks in leadership? How are we helping support leaders and what they really need to succeed?
Love that. What inspired you to write your books?
So the first one, I always thought it'd be cool to write a book. And you know the stats on this better than I do of the percentages of people who want to write a book someday. I had a conversation with a former coworker of mine right before I wrote my first book, and I had met him I hadn't seen him in years, and we had met at a networking event, and we somehow started talking about. He said, I've always wanted to write a book," and I said, "Me too. I'm gonna go home and write a book." And literally an hour later, I had Beyond the Board outlined. That's kind of my process, right? I outline first and then I start filling in. And it was written in 2 months. The second book, I knew I'd write a book. Um, my first book, I didn't know what I was getting into. So it was my second book, I had the fear of the known of, of how much work this is going to be, balancing a much higher client load. Because my first book I wrote when I was consulting firm was getting off the ground, and it was a lot of building, right? Not a lot of client work at the beginning, as a lot of consulting businesses go. So but I knew I needed to write it. We cannot work at Rise Up Consulting. We cannot work with every emerging sales leader or every org. It just, that's not realistic. And so I thought, what would be a really neat way to kind of support those who we can't reach or don't have the budget to work with us or don't have, just giving them something. And so I'm excited that the second book is done.
Love that. When you were writing your books, who were you thinking of when it comes to who your books are for? Love that. How long have you been writing and what made you really sit down and start?
I don't this is funny. I don't consider myself a writer by any means. I read some marvelous books and I go, "Oh, they are really good at writing." I write how I speak, and so, but too, the success of a book is not the quality of the book. Sometimes, right, it's not the quality of the writing; it's how it resonates with people, how it's marketed, and I don't mean that my book is not well written. I have a lot of help with editors and formatters, and I've got a team that's helping, but um it's a process. So it's funny. I'm like, "Oh, I guess I am a writer. I have a couple of books. I do write." Um, what was your question? I kind of went on off a tangent there. Like what's the process? What was the actual question? Sorry, I kind of
What
like went on a tangent.
You're good. What made you really sit down and start writing?
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. It is this when thoughts swirl around in your head and it gets overwhelming, I need to get them out of my head. And how I do that is I write. I had a and I not a fear, but I have this belief that if we don't, when we get ideas, if we don't do something with those ideas, someone else is going to take them. So I came from this from a scarcity and an abundance mentality where I'm like, if I don't get this out, someone else is going to. And I know that there's no new thoughts, right? Everything's been said. It's just how it's said and how it's communicated. So that was the scarcity mentality of like, I got to get this done. But also from an abundancy mentality of this is how we continue to scale this business. This is how we continue to help people who really need it. And the more well equipped, the more equipped leaders are in general, the better everyone else is, whether that money makes it to my pocket or not, right? Whether that revenue hits the business or not. And so, that's what I was like, I finally have to do this. But again, the second book, I knew what I was getting into. And so I got very creative about how I avoided doing the work where, oh, I have my client loads too much. I'll write later. And then it just became months later. And I went, I'm becoming the person I coach my clients not to be. Like I was, so that's what I did.
Amazing. What is your schedule like when you are writing a book?
I tend to write everything in the morning. That is my best time to write. The second book, I gave myself a goal of writing, I think it was like 2,000 words a day. And some days I hit it and some days I didn't. But I find that the writing the work helps be more creative. So even in the writing blocks or as I was reading it, I'm like, this is not good. As I was like, what am I actually trying to say? I still powered through that because it helped subconsciously the thought process. But I write during my best energetic time of day, and that's mornings.
Love that. What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
The phone off, the kids not coming in. There were a few times that I couldn't get it done during the week. So there were a lot of Saturdays and Sundays, which is a lot of sacrifice for the family to, when mom's in the office and the door is closed. So there was that, but I need quiet space. I can't have I didn't listen to a ton of music for the second book, but I cannot have any sort of music because I know every song. I can't sing, but it's really distracting to have, that type of music around. But that's what it is. Really good lighting that energizes. I didn't get too crazy with like not that it's crazy, but um any sense or like I don't do you know what I'm talking about?
Like the aroma?
Yeah,
Yeah,
aromatherapy.
Yeah.
Yes, I didn't get too crazy with that, but I think anything like that, quiet room, morning time, focused, no distractions, that produces the best ideas. And then when I'm able to go back and fact check and find more research to back the intuitive thoughts, I guess, to help make it stronger. So
Amazing. What is your favorite writing snack and drink?
coffee. Coffee is my favorite, and I like, nuts because if I, like a light snack, because if I eat too many, heavy foods, and I'm a gluten-free person, but if I have too much heavy food, it really dulls, my brain. So, cashews and coffee, yeah.
Love it. What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I am a little bit of a nerd, so I stick most of my time in nonfiction. And the books that I read are about organizational health and strategy. And I have a few favorite authors, in that type of space. I do track. I track the fiction books I read as well, and this is funny, right before we recorded this, I was looking at some of my summer months and I'm planning it out, to which my son said, "There's 2 types of people, mom. There's planners and people who just roll with it." And I said, I can't just go with it. But I was looking at my schedule. I'm like, I need to read another fiction book. So that'll be on the docket. I don't know what that will be, but I like suspense. So I don't read a lot of Danielle Steele. I don't know. I don't read that genre anymore. I don't read that type of book, but I like a good suspense book.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
No. I think not directly, because I never thought I would become a writer. I think, the more that I've read, and I've always been, I mean, I remember making my mom drive me to the next town over's library in 8th grade. I was the only, like, 8th grade high schooler. No one, like, went to the library. That wasn't really a thing. But as I've read a lot of books, and I think when good and bad, I think I've looked at every author and felt how bold that they were, that they had the gumption to put their words out into the world, and I think I drew inspiration of, like, I can do this, right? Because 'Cause I'm sure you read books too sometimes, you're like, "Okay." Good or bad, you go, "That is amazing that they were able to do that," or I could do that too." So, no book or author in particular, um, but I think it's just a culmination of building confidence the more I've read to be like, I could probably do that as well.
Love that. What books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
I loved the Babysitters Club. I read every single Babysitters Club book. I also, the Judy Blooms, I know these are like very common, but it's fun now to read them with my daughter. Um, so those were the series, and I would get stuck on, if I would pick an author, I found comfort, then I would just go back and get other books by that same author. So I'm not very drawn. I don't know why that is. But if I find one, I'm like, okay, Vince Flynn. All right, I'll read more Vince Flynn, or whatever that is. Mary Higgins Clark. I read a lot of Mary Higgins Clark in middle school and high school as well. Um, but I probably should explore authors who only have 1 or 2 books, like myself. I might be skipping people like me. So that's a good, thank you for that question. Lots of introspection here.
Love it. On the other side of that, now as an adult, what are your favorite series or authors? If they come out with something, you automatically grab it.
I, um, I will always read, anything new from, Ryan Holiday or Simon Sinek, Mel Robbins. Those are people where they've got a new book, I'm like, "I'm gonna get that," because I know that they do their research, and, there will be something new that I can use either for myself or for my clients. I will say that. Beyond that, I am just literally nerding it out, and I go to the business section of the bookstore, the self-help section of the bookstore. There are a few books I read every single year, and every single year I read them, they hit me differently. So I read Marianne Williamson's A Return to Love every year. I read, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People every year. And so I think it's fun. We miss things, and I don't read a ton of books, over and over again. I'm really, several times I'm a one and doneer, but there are a couple of those books that I will read, and I find it interesting where I'm seeing different things, where I'm in a different position, and I'm like, "That is not how I read that when I read that 20 years ago." So I think that that's kinda cool to use some of those books to judge our own journeys of growth.
Love that so much. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
I would say to set really small goals and find your wins. So it's like any sort of thing that you do of getting the momentum and the motivation. We don't continue to do things when we're not winning. And I think that the question was continuing to read again, right? Not learning how to read, but continuing to read. And I think sometimes if we've had success or maybe like, oh, I used to read all the time and then I just stopped. I don't know why I stopped. And so we compare, well, I only read 3 pages today. And I used to it doesn't matter. I think comparing old wins to where you are now, that's okay. But I would commit to a very small goal and then build momentum and build upon that. People get so excited around New Year's or I'm going to do this now. I'm going to be a reader. Leaders are readers and I'm going to do this. And I just go pick something you can follow through with consistently and create a really good habit around and then build from there. So you don't feel bad you only got 30 minutes in, right? You sat down and you got 30 minutes, whether that's a workout or you're reading a book, right? You show up and I think giving yourself credit for that is really important.
Love that so much. On the other side of that, what would you tell someone just starting to write their own book?
I would say that you should get people around you that help pull you out of your self doubt and the analysis paralysis that can happen. And I would also, so helping you through it, but then also giving insights to how you can make it better, being super coachable, which is easy to do when you're new at something, not easy to do when you think you know everything you need to know. I think we become less coachable as we get older naturally. But that's what I would say would be surround yourself with some really good people.
Love that. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
I think, well, I'm an open book. So I don't, authenticity is one of my top values, and so I don't think there's a lot of surprises about me. Um, I'm a working married mother, so my life isn't too I don't have like these crazy, exciting habits or anything like that. But um, yeah, I'm an open book. So that might surprise people. I don't know, but there's really nothing. I'm just your Midwest kind of working mom, you
You
know?
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Is there anything you would like to say or add?
No, I think
No.
we covered it. I think, people discovering a love of reading and choosing to read as a way to grow themselves, to develop themselves on this constant journey we're on to become, better people, whether it's better parents, better spouses, better friends, better community members, whatever it is, I think is just really, really good. And you can never underestimate the power of reading. And I'll leave with this. And I know this is something that's been people have heard before, but Jim Rohn had always said, like, you're the same person you're going to be 5 years from now except for the people you surround yourself and the books that you read. And so being very intentional about consumption, we are scrolling is very unintentional, right? We're like, "Oh my gosh, was that?" I had to take TikTok off my phone because I was there for an hour and that freaked me out how unintentional I was about what's going in my brain. But choosing great books, to whether you're getting lost in a fictionist world, or you're going nonfiction and you are intentional about that consumption. But books are a great way to do that and to become a better version of yourself.
Love that. Where's the best place for readers to find your books? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
So the best place to buy my books is on Amazon. I am always on LinkedIn, so that's a great place to connect. And then when I speak, I have signed copies. If I don't sell a ton of, I don't choose to sell books to do the signed copies, but if someone wants one, they can absolutely reach out and I'd get them a signed copy. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so, so much for being here today. We're so grateful that we got to interview you. We'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes. That way everyone can find you. And again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.